Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Mank Buses. If you're new here, my name is Jordan and I am the main man on Mank Buses. In these podcasts, we aim to tackle either stories of my time as a bus driver, others as a bus driver, or just general tips and advice or feedback on being a bus driver. Now, we recently had a question from someone on YouTube who wanted to know, do you find being a bus driver that toilet breaks are a problem? To anyone who's thinking about becoming a bus driver, do you really have to watch how much liquid you're drinking, or do you get plenty of chance to nip to the loo? This is a very good question, and it's something that very much depends on where you are. For example, in Manchester, for the company I work for, toilet breaks were few and far. So you were very lucky if you had a terminus with a toilet, or even a terminus with a toilet you was allowed to use. Some of them you weren't allowed to use because businesses had a bee in their bonnet about it. So I'll give you a few examples. Let's give the 256 route a example. So on the 256, you didn't really have anywhere to go to the toilet at all. In town, you had Chiltern Street if you wanted to, if you had a radar key, or you could bump the barrier to get into the coach station toilets. But other than that, you didn't really have anywhere. And that was obviously going to be a problem. But when you got to the terminus, if you was desperate, say, you did essentially have an opportunity to be able to go to the toilet. The McCall's shops, or what used to be the co-op there, used to, pre-pandemic that is, before COVID, they used to allow bus drivers to use their facilities if they weren't busy. But if you normally had like 10 minutes at a terminus, so if you just waited a few minutes, they'd let you in, use the facilities, and then leave. But a lot of the problems came when colleagues would abuse these facilities, leave them dirty, or pee all over the seat, or stuff like that. It's disgusting, and companies would get fed up of this, so then they'd stop helping drivers. Oh, it is a very big catch-22 situation, really. If you've got an opportunity for a toilet to be used, then don't abuse it. Make sure you do use it responsibly. However, if we jump over to a different route and we take, say, the 42 or the 142, when you got to Pals Wood, we used to be able to use the complex, which was like the bowling, the arcade, whatever else. Because the Superloo there was always dirty. The Superloos were always horrible. I'll talk about them in a minute. But for whatever reason, because we weren't officially customers of the arcade, they decided that we were no longer allowed to use the toilet facilities there, which was a real pain in the bottom, because even if you was desperate, the Superloo would close quite early on, which wasn't ideal at all. And then you had other routes where you just didn't have toilets at all. In Piccadilly, you had the Superloo on the bus station, if you was lucky enough not to get caught by an inspector. More about them in another episode. But really, you didn't want to go in it. It was the sort of place where you went in and you wiped your feet on the way out. If you went in that Superloo and it was clean, you had a party. Because in 3 years of city centre driving, I've never ever gone in that Superloo and it been clean. The other downside to the Superloo is you've got to have a radar key. Now, a lot of bus drivers will get radar keys from online. I was the same. Me and Will both got one, which helped us be able to access the toilets. But essentially, if you don't have a radar key, it's 20p out your own pocket to go toilet. It may even be 30p now. Which, if you think that'll add up over the time of you going in and out of Piccadilly, and there's no allowance for it, the company is just, well, tough, which isn't fair. We also did have at one point, especially on a night shift, it was safer for you to go in the amusement arcade. They allowed us to use their toilets. It was more of a safety thing. They looked out for us, their security, and we was able to go in there for the loo. Obviously, at night we're carrying cash. It's not a nice place to be. So they'd allow us to go in because we could take our cash in. You know, we're safe, we're on camera, and everything else. Where the Superloo, there's nothing saying that you go in, do your business, grab your cash tray, come back out, and you get mugged on the way out. And there's no one going to stop you. So the amusement arcade was number one. Some drivers went Costa Coffee, or whatever it was, Starbucks, the place that got crashed into by the Diamond bus not long ago. It's no longer a coffee shop. It's a drive-through coffee shop now. But you could only go in there if you was a customer. So a lot of drivers didn't go in there because they weren't a customer. When you went to like Stockport and that, obviously you had Lewes there. Manchester Airport, you had Lewes and what have you. Now, moving on a bit, we'll talk when I did it over in High Peak. So we're talking Buxton, Ashbourne, and Derby, those places. And honestly, when you got long routes like that and hot weather, you're going to drink a lot. And there isn't really many places for the toilet. You got Buxton, you got the terminuses, but when you're on like an Ashbourne or stuff like that, you don't really. Well, High Peak were quite good in the sense that every terminus had a toilet, but you never know when you're actually going to get taken short, essentially. But some of the rural routes, like the 442 and stuff like that, if you was empty, you're in the middle of nowhere. You know, you may not see a car for the entire route down these single tracks. So maybe when it started going a bit darker, and I've had to do this myself, when you're absolutely bursting, you're crossing your legs, you can't drive any further, you know, you got no one on. So you just pull up at the side of the road and do it up the back wheel. Essentially, as long as no one sees you doing it, no one's there to stop you, and no one knows. Because no company is allowed to check the CCTV out of a whim. They've got to have a reason. So if no one's seen you do it, well, no one's going to know. But at the end of the day, if you've got to relieve yourself, you've got to relieve yourself. And to me, if you're able to do it, I know the female drivers aren't. Obviously, toilet facilities for them are much more important than they are for males, essentially. But if you need to go, you need to go. So as long as no one sees you, there's not really a problem. Then Selwyn's, when I did coaching, most of the time I had a coach with a toilet. So you get to a place, oh, you need toilet to the pickup. Oh, I just go in on the coach. That really wasn't an issue. And then where I am now, which I can't disclose, but essentially there's toilets everywhere. And there's nothing wrong with jumping off the bus for a minute to go toilet as long as you inform your passengers. There's no problems with it whatsoever. So what I'd say to a new driver, and to answer the question, is essentially it depends on who you work for, where you work, and everything else. So the situation needs to improve for drivers for toilets, because especially on like a hot day when you're drinking loads, what goes in's got to come out, and it's not fair that a driver might have to hold their legs together for 4 hours because they went in the depot and then they've got out of the depot, they've gone down the road for an hour, and they need toilet already. And then they've got to wait another 3.5 hours, 4 hours for the toilet. No, things need to improve. As I say, you can always find somewhere that will help you out, though. If you're really, really desperate, normally if you explain yourself to the little local shops and stuff like that, normally they won't have a problem with it. They'll understand your frustration because you can't find a toilet. Excuse me. You can't find a toilet. You need to go. Some people, though, will tell you to jog on, and that's unfair. You know, at the end of the day, you're there providing a public service. The public convenience should really be provided for you as well, but it isn't. So, as far as the question of do you have to limit how much you drink when you're on service work and going in and out the city centre and what have you, the answer really is yeah. And in the warm weather, it's not easy. Not easy at all. In the cold weather, when you just want a brew, not easy. There's no such thing as a just right temperature cab. It's either too hot or it's too cold. That's why in a lot of the videos on YouTube, and if you didn't know who was on there, you can check us out on there. You'll see that even in the snow, my window is open. This is because the cab heating, normally there was only two options: cold or hot. There's no in between, and hot is boiling. And that's if you was lucky. Normally there was just hot and hot. So it's not easy. So my recommendation to anyone new joining is scout the area first. Talk to other drivers that are at the depot. Drivers that have been there years will have places where you can go toilet because they would have been in the same situation yourself. But don't abuse the toilet facilities if a business gives them you, because they don't really have to give them you. You know, they're private toilets for that dwelling. So don't abuse them. Simple as. If you abuse them, they just won't help anyone again, and then that's unfair on the rest of your colleagues. So, yeah, if you find somewhere that's willing to help you, make sure you do. Look after the facilities that they've give you and leave them as clean as when you went in. And it's the only way that bus drivers are going to get more toilet facilities if businesses actually help the drivers and offer their toilet facilities up for them. I know a lot say, well, it's insurance, it's risk, it's this, it's that. What is the harm in letting a bus driver use your toilet? And I've never got this about a lot of businesses when they go, oh, you're not a customer, you're not insured. Well, you could say that as if you get on a bus with no ticket. You're no longer a customer, so you're not insured. But it doesn't work like that. Insurance normally covers anyone that is on the premises for any legitimate reason of an accident or whatever, that they're covered. So it just can't be insurance. It's just they don't want you to. And it's what the human race is, unfortunately, in this day and age, come down to, is that we'll punish each other to stop each other. And it's ridiculous. You know? I always gave people a second chance. And if I ran a business and a bus driver came up and went, can you use your toilet? I'm bursting. And I've got a bit to get back to my depot. I just go, yeah, knock yourself out. I'll take you back there and you can use the toilet. And it's not a problem. It's different if you're in a big corporation, like, and your toilets are upstairs or behind staff doors and shit like that. But a lot of these little shops will just have a toilet in the back. Normally, maybe even just off the shop floor. The little co-op in Flixton, you went through the back door, which was pin coded. You had a very little sink. It was more like a desk as a sink area, and then you had the toilet. So there was no problem, and it's all cameraed as you go through there. Obviously, the toilet's not, but it's just ridiculous. How you can't be allowed to use the toilet. Just total ridiculous. But hey ho, I hope that has answered your question, and I hope this provides some extra information to anyone who's thinking about doing it. And yeah, please do check out YouTube, and don't forget to joining us and providing us with a membership is what keeps these blogs going. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you out on the road. Bye for now.